Hello and welcome to the program. Leaders from almost 200 countries are gathering in New York for the 73rd UN General Assembly, and the Ukrainian delegation, led by Ukraine's President Petro Poroshenko, will be there too. To talk more about what Ukraine can expect from this year's assembly, we're joined in the studio today by Anton Korynevych, international legislation expert. Thank you for joining us.
Hello.
So, first question for the viewers to understand, why is it a major event this year for Ukraine?
Well, because the session of the UN General Assembly is always an event which is interesting for all the states which are UN members. So that's why for Ukraine it is very important to keep the issues which are of interest for our state and to keep these ideas and to keep these points into the agenda of the UN General Assembly. So it is normal and it is obvious that the Ukrainian state, that the Ukrainian diplomacy are willing to keep and to put into the agenda of the UN General Assembly all the issues which are of relevance for our state. So we really anticipate that General Assembly will address the issues which are of the biggest importance for Ukraine.
Which is, and let's expand on it. What are the main issues that's going to be talked about? We know about the UN peacekeeping mission, maybe the LFC too. What's on the program?
Well, I think that it is better to start with the point in the agenda which is called situation in the temporary occupied territories in Ukraine. And this point was inserted into the agenda due to the Ukrainian idea, and it was supported by I think 68 states. So it is very important because Ukraine will take the lead in the discussions regarding this issue. So we anticipate that a lot of issues regarding the alleged violations of human rights, of crimes which were committed in the temporary occupied territories of Ukraine will be discussed there. And it is rather interesting also to see whether the situation in the Donetsk and Lugansk regions, which are not controlled by the government now, whether they will be also called the temporary occupied territories, as the Crimea and Sevastopol are called now. So the expansion of this regime and the expansion of the use of this term occupied territory by the United Nations towards the Donetsk and Lugansk regions will be...
that's a major point in a rhetoric,
I would say that this is an important issue which might be also important for instance, for the work of the International Criminal Court, which is still qualifying the situation in Donetsk and Lugansk. So we will anticipate what the UN General Assembly will say in this regard. Also, of course, the major issue of the UN peacekeeping mission will be also discussed. It is anticipated that Ukraine will put this matter as serious as we can, maybe with some concrete prospects of what states can participate, which will be the mission, what mandate will this mission have. And of course, this may be seen as a tactical background for the work of the UN system regarding the UN peacekeeping mission. And of course, the situation in the Sea of Azov.
Yeah, there is this current situation in the Sea of Azov between...
It is a very interesting situation because right now, this is a situation which is worked by the two states, Ukraine and the Russian Federation. And to put this into the agenda or into the work of the General Assembly of the United Nations is important to expand this situation towards the international agenda and to make international community think about this and to try to work on this matter. So I think this matter of the situation in the Sea of Azov and of actions of the Russian Federation there is also of crucial importance.
Now, these three topics, the occupied territory, the UN peacekeeping mission, plus the Sea of Azov, are a little bit different situation. Isn't there a risk if a resolution is voted that Russia can say, like, basically this resolution is not valid because that point or that point or that point is not valid? Like, isn't there a risk that if there's a package about this resolution that Russia can refuse everything in block?
I think that it is important to see how Ukraine will work and will play in this field, because it is obvious that the situation on the temporary occupied territories will be, it is in the agenda, it is voted for. Peacekeeping mission, possible one, alleged one, and the situation in the Sea of Azov. I think, is more like the issues to be discussed. So it is important to put them into the agenda, even if the situation is not resolved, even if we don't have any document which is worked by the UN General Assembly. It is important to talk about this during the session, during the lunch or coffee break or whatever, to make international community think about that and to make international community think how to work the situations out. So let's see what will happen. Again, when we talk about the UN peacekeeping mission, it is, I think, rather obvious that this is a tactical point, tactical background to work more concrete in future in this regard. So let's see what's going to happen in New York in the nearest days.
So that's the first step, but there's going to be a lot of speech, of course. There's going to be, as you said, maybe discussion and lunch and coffees. What really happens after the speech? What are the concrete means put in place after, let's say, Ukrainian President Petro Poroshenko said his speech about Ukraine, made the whole community aware of the danger of Russia's behavior? What happens next?
Well, I think the crucial point here is to make Ukraine be in the agenda of the international community. When we talk Ukraine, we mean all our problematic issues of relations with the Russian Federation: occupation, aggression, situation in the Sea of Azov, in Crimea, Sevastopol, Donbass, and so on and so forth. So to make this agenda work and to include there Ukraine is already very important. What may be the result of all these negotiations in the hall, in the Great Hall of the General Assembly session, or in the other situations? I think it's important to keep international community informed of all the events, give them the relevant information which they may receive from the first hand from Ukrainian leadership and not from the Russian TV or Russian internet, Russian propaganda mechanisms, and to see the situation in the whole and to try to think how the international community, in particular United Nations, which is to address threats to international peace and threats to international community, how to address these issues for them to be resolved.
Because Russia is known for not listening to the UN resolutions, so is there a way to weigh in?
Well, unfortunately, this is a reality. Russia is a permanent member to the Security Council of the United Nations, so this is the fact. And Ukraine is in a situation where Ukraine needs to think and to try work to avoid this very fact and to try to get the result, paying attention to this status of the Russian Federation. So it will be interesting to see how Ukraine and Ukrainian allies will try to put these issues.
Well, thank you for this overview. It was a pleasure to have you in the studio today.
Thank you.
That was Anton Korynevych, international legislation expert. Thank you for watching the program and stay tuned for the rest.